Guys, I've got the tools lined up from the cheapest all the way to the most expensive, from $1 pretty much all the way down to $70, right? And this is not clickbait. This is what you've been told to use and have been using. These butt connectors that are red in color. The red in color means that these butt connectors are gauged, as you can see there, from 22 to 16 gauge wire they're supposed to be able to handle. And you can see that on the tools, they're also marked. So the red right there, if you had a blue butt connector, that would be what it would be, 16 to 14, 22 to 18, right? And these are all, most of them are all pretty much color coded, as you can see with these ratcheting tools here. They're all color coded, so you know the red is supposed to be this gauge, right? Now here's the problem. This is a connector from a 2004 Dodge Ram, and this goes to the steering column. As you can see, here are the wires. I cut this off of the vehicle, and this is the gauge that it uses. This is, I believe, roughly about a 20 gauge to 18 gauge wire. Here's some wiring I bought. By the way, all these I bought with my own money. I'm not sponsored by anybody. I paid money for all of these tools to do this test. This wiring is 20 gauge. Everything is going to be links in the description of all these. Yeah, 20 gauge. It's pretty handy. You can feed all of them through and then pull out as you need, cut and whatnot. So just so you can have a comparison of this OEM Dodge wiring, so you can see. I just went ahead and stripped some of the coating back so you can see the size of the wire. The purple is the OEM Dodge, and this is the 20 gauge that comes in the packet here. So as you can see, this is about 18 to 20 gauge. And with A.W.G, the higher the number, the actual smaller the wire is. So this is rated, as you can see, the red is up to 22 gauge, right? Actually flip that around so you can see the number in gauge. It's at, this says 18 to 22, I believe. And that's pretty much, as you can see, here's the most expensive tool. What it says, 18 to 22 is right, which means, and this has all kind of tool certifications right here, this model here, this ratcheting as well. As you can see, it kind of locks in place. One thing I don't like about this tool, there's no, yeah, you've got to click it all the way through, and then it'll actually release, right? So just to tell you, none of these tools, even the most expensive, at their rated gauge, can crimp this OEM 18 to 20 gauge wire using a rated 22 to 16 gauge butt connector. It can't be done. None of these ratcheting tools can do it. Just to make this quick, right? I will tell you, these can, right? Believe it or not, this one tool I picked up from the dollar store years back, you know, Chinese copy or whatnot, can actually crimp it a lot better. This one actually does a pretty good job, right? And these with the non-insulated, they can actually grab it, right? But the crimps that it does, it destroys the heat shrink, which defeats the purpose. And also the crimp is still not strong enough. I'm just giving you just like a heads up of what's actually going on here. So the point of the story is none of these ratcheting tools can do it. None, not even the most expensive one that's has the highest ratings or whatnot, standards rather. Yeah, I'm going to demonstrate it with 4 of these tools just so you can see the top 4 expensive tools. I'm going to demonstrate using the red marking that's supposed to be the gauge with the red heat shrink butt connector so you can see the results. I'm going to start out with the most expensive tool. This is the FTZ electrical ratchet crimping tool, right? You have to push it all the way down before you can't, there's no release or anything like that. You have to actually pass a certain point before it can release. This is the OEM Dodge 2004 wiring harness. I'm going to go ahead and position. Now, let's go ahead and try to crimp it down at the 22, the red spot. Got it. Okay, let me get that in there. I'm even gonna, it's all the way down. Tool is at its maximum. You can see that. It's even closed there. Release. I'm even gonna crimp it a little further down the barrel. One more time. Kind of slide in a bit in. Okay. And as you can see, that just fell out. That just fell out. At the recommended gauge, you can see down in there and see the crimp, actually what it did. Get that closer for you. See that? Wire just fell out. Okay? I didn't put any tugging, anything, it just fell. So let's check the next tool. I'm gonna use the other end of it. We're gonna use the red, which is the recommended gauge for this. I'm gonna put it in. This one actually holding a little bit better, pulled right out. You see that? Now let me tell you why this is so important, okay? While I'm getting the other tool. Because on modern cars, everything is electronically controlled pretty much right now. You know, you hit the power window button, you're not actually running it to a motor, you're running it to a signal to a computer to request, right? This is even modern wiring. Here's the OBD connector. As you can see how thin these wires are. These are even smaller, right? Look at that. Here's the Dodge. Here's the Dodge. Look at these wires. Look at this. Let me show you something. Can you see the difference in the size of this thing? Let me strip this back. Okay, I stripped it back. Now look at the size difference, right? The purple one is the Dodge 2004, and this is a modern car, 2020. I believe this was a Honda. You see this, the difference? This is something like about a 24 gauge wire, I believe, or even closer to 26. And that's what these modern cars are using right now, okay? So these tools that and things that you're using right here from the past, this is not gonna cut it anymore. I'm gonna show you what you're supposed to be using. Okay, here's our Quai book, it looks like. And we're gonna go ahead and put it at the red setting. And it's ratcheting, so it holds it in place for us. Now let's get our wire inserted. Crimp down. Maximum, as you can see, the handle's all the way closed. You can see the crimp, it did. Looks nice, wouldn't break the heat, but look at that, pulls right out, okay? Now we got this iCrimp HS30J, right? By the way, all these tools, like I said, are gonna be a link in the description. Go ahead and put it in the ratchet. And let's insert our wire. Okay. It's all the way to the maximum. As you can see, we're all the way crimped, full close. Release. No damage to the jacket. Pretty firm connection. And look at that. Just pulls right out. See that? Guys, here's our lineup. Got this from the bargain bin, dollar store a couple years back. It was basically $1, cheapo. I've got this next one. It's the Quinn wire stripper crimper cutter from Harbor Freight. It's at $6.99. Okay. Then we got this one here. Also, this is the Pittsburgh from Harbor Freight. This one is the 9.5 inch cutter slash crimper. It has for insulated and non-insulated. By the way, the quality in this tool varies a lot. If you are going to pick this one up, you need to compare it. I'll show you a picture here in a second, and you can see the difference in where this tooth right here is at different positions, right on the shelf, and also up here at the top where it bites. It actually cuts different locations, doesn't cut well. So you gotta, if you're gonna get this cheapo tool, you need to select. Select well on this one, $70.99 at Harbor Freight. This LAOA, it looks like. There's going to be a link in the description for all of this. This one is at $10.99, right? Next one is going to be this Tnisesm, it looks like, wire cutter, model 11475. Yeah, it's a wire cutter, crimper, and stripper. As you can see, cuts here. You can do a couple of gauge wires here and up here at the front. You can do other ones, and that is $10.99. $10.99. Okay, now we have the SPEEDWOX crimper cutter, and this one is $13.59 at the time of this video. Then we got this multi-tool YARRAMATE crimper, cutter, and also stripper. Pretty good stripper, by the way. $15.49. Now we've got this DELIXI crimper and stripper as well. It's got, you can see the tooth up there for crimping, needle nose pliers, cutter up front, and crimper down below. You can also spin your wires, twist your wires if you need to. Some other tools it's got, and this one is at $17.99. And we got this AIRIC 4CS02. It's supposed to handle up to, I believe, 26 gauge at the yellow setting up front. As you notice, the red is in the middle. Once you see that red in the middle, that usually means this tool is rated for even doing smaller gauge wires. And this one is at $21.99. Okay. Next up is this iCrimp HS30J, and this one comes with a kit. It comes with the screwdriver to change out the dies. It comes with multiple different dies. You can do ferrule connectors, also non-insulated crimp connectors, and you can read there what the rating is on this one, or what it's supposed to do, what it looks like inside. And the iCrimp is at $29.99. Okay. Next we got this Quai book, and it is at comes with multiple dies as well, and also some different insulated connectors. You can change out the dies, of course, with these two screws here, and slide them out and replace the dies. And this one is right about the same price at $30. Okay. Next, we got this HKS ratcheting crimp tool. Comes with a bunch of different dies, and one thing I don't like about this, it uses the hex tool to be able to change out the dies. This is, I believe, a 4mm die size, and you can see what it's rated at here. This is supposed to be at the green setting, up to 26 gauge wire. So, and this is the HKS. It's at $45.98, about 46 bucks. Last, we got the FTZ, which is supposed to be the top of the line, rated type, made in China, by the way, crimper. And this is rated at 26 to 24 gauge at the yellow at the top. And of course, the red, you can see all the other ones. And I kind of showed this to you already. And this one is at $69.28. Okay, so to cut to the chase, you're probably asking, so then, okay, what should I be using? All right, so here's what I'm going to show you. This is the same cable we've been testing on, and this is like a, I believe, like about a 14 gauge connector. I wouldn't use these red connectors for anything smaller than this gauge wire. So like this, I wouldn't even use them, because the chance of you getting a good crimp or a faulty crimp, I've had issues where temperature sensors weren't reading properly. They would be fluctuating or going reading high or low because the resistance, you've got a loose connection in there or somewhat flaky some kind of way. That's going to give you some type of resistance, and that will make a sensor give you all kind of crazy readings to computers and different things like that. So it's very important if you're going to be crimping that you have the right tools, you have the right size connector, and gauge the wire that you're using. Okay, so if not this, then which one? It would be this one. Okay, here, this one, as you can see, is rated from 26 to 22 gauge. Look at the difference in the size, right? You see that? That's a complete big difference right there, right? So this is the type of connector you should be using for doing your crimps for modern cars. This, unless you're doing like, let's say a fan motor or something like that where they use bigger gauge wires, you pretty much are not going to use this in any modern cars that's going to give you a good reliable crimp, okay? Or sound systems or something like that. But for automotive, let's say sensors, wiring to, the PCM, different things like that, this is the size you're going to want to be using. Now, here's the deal. There are pretty much not that many tools at all rated to crimp heat shrink butt connectors at this gauge from 26 gauge. In fact, on the market, I found only these three, this being the most expensive, as you can see, all right? But just because they're rated to crimp these connectors doesn't mean they actually do it properly and do a good job at it. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna test them. By the way, an alternative to the heat shrink butt connector that you see here is the solder sleeve connector, heat shrink connector. As you can see, it's rated at the same size and everything. And this one, you just need a heat gun. And I use these a lot faithfully. You will get more strength with the proper tools using this, the Crimp version, right? But of course, that all depends on using the proper tool, using it right. The solder is going to give you a more consistent reading for sensors if you don't have the right tools to do this, because without the right tools to actually do this and be able to test this and make sure it's good, this is most likely going to be a waste of time, especially if you have multiple wires, 10 or 20 wires, and then you're going to have to try to hunt down which one has a bad crimp. You don't want to be in a situation like that. Very important to have the right tools when you're dealing with modern cars and wiring. Now, out of the non-ratcheting tools, believe it or not, some of these, even though rated up to 22, are able to crimp these connectors, right? And I'm going to pull those out right now. These right here, they're able to actually do it, believe it or not. And I'm going to show you these as well. But should you be using these? Not so fast. You should not. Stay tuned, and I'm going to show you why. Okay, we're going to test the most expensive tool first at the OEM Dodge wiring. I'm going to go ahead and insert it. When you're inserting these, you want to make sure you got all the strands in. You don't want to have any strands sticking out, so every single thing gets crimped. And then we're going to use our tool. Looks pretty good here. And we've got it all the way down. As you can see, the teeth are completely closed. This is the maximum. There's no more, you're getting more than this. Release. And you can see the crimp it did. And it did not damage the heat shrink as it's supposed to. Let's see if it actually holds. Yeah, it's a pretty firm crimp. I can't just pull it out like that with my hands. It's on there. Yeah. So this one can crimp at, I would say this gauge is between 18 and 20 gauge. I would probably say it's 18 gauge wire. This tool can crimp 18 gauge wire. I would say that's a satisfactory crimp. I'm gonna, actually, let's go ahead and pull this off. Let's see how strong it is, if it crimped all the way to a factory level, or if it's just pretty much an acceptable crimp. Because I consider a factory grade crimp where if I pull this physically using a tool apart, the wire should actually break and the wire should stay inside of this crimp. Let me tell you something. Go look at any car you have. Go to a junkyard. Check the battery cables. You're only going to find crimps. Any connector to a important device, engine, computer, they're all crimped, right? Mechanically crimped like this, right? This is a stable way of doing it, but it has to be done right. So like I said, I consider a factory crimp where the wire will actually break here, because a complete factory crimp basically fuses the wire and the metal of the butt connector together, so it's all one piece now. So it's not separated. It's basically almost like welded together, right? So if I can pull the wire out, it's not, I would consider factory, but it still could be a passable crimp. I'll just use these pliers and see if I can slide it off. Yeah, and I was able to slide it off with force. See that? Let's see if any, didn't look like it kept any of the, yeah, you see how it crimped in there? Didn't bite off any of the wire, right? So I wouldn't consider that a factory grade crimp, because you're not pulling off a factory grade crimp. It's not happening. The wires are going to break first. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one, and I'm going to cut the wire down and strip it back so we have some fresh wire in case there's any kind of, microscopic damage to the wire that we crimped. All right, we got fresh wire. Now we're going to go ahead and use the next tool. Okay, this is the HKS, the second most expensive tool on our lineup. By the way, I've got the adjusting screw all the way to the maximum setting. So it's going to put out the maximum amount of force when you crimp it down to the maximum, so as far as it goes. So, by the way, if you can see that on the teeth, you can see like the number 0.25. It will indent that onto the actual insulation. In this case, it wouldn't matter much on a heat shrink, because once you heat it up, it's probably going to go away. But on a insulated nylon type connector, you will see the tooth that was used on that, right? So I'm going to put it basically here so that the teeth are going to bite right there at the connector. And I'm going to crimp it down. Let's see if I hit the right spot there. Yeah, I pretty much hit it right at the end of the connector. You can see there. All right, let's see. Oh yeah, that's on there. Yep, it's pretty good crimp. Now let's see if I could pry it off. That's pretty tough. I'm thinking this might be all the way. Whoa. We almost lost our camera on that one, man. Yeah, this one I'm thinking is going to be factory grade crimp, man. Finally got it off. Let's see. I can see some wire in there. I don't know if you can see that, but it did strip some. Yeah, it stripped some of the wires. So I'm pretty much going to say this is close to a factory grade crimp. So far, this is going to be in the lead right now. This tool, this is the HKS at $45.98. All right, same thing. We got fresh wire. I've got the AIRIC now next. We're going to go on the yellow, which is smallest gauge that it's rated for. I'm going to use that inside tooth there. So we're grabbing right at the, yeah. By the way, you can, let me see, I think I missed here. Yeah, I did. Let me crimp that again. A little bit off, trying to look through the camera. You could crimp further down the barrel as well. which I kind of did right here twice. So this actually has an advantage because I crimped twice versus the other devices I only crimped one time. So we've got it crimped. As you can see, the crimp it did not damage the insulation, and this tool is also on its maximum amount of force that it can apply. All right, and you can see how it looks when it bites down. Okay, and let's see. And I would call that a fail. I was able to just pull that right out, minimum amount of force. So that kind of cuts this tool already out of the competition, that I could just pull it out, and it's supposed to be rated at its maximum level. It's supposed to be rated to to handle at least 26 gauge wire. And as you can see, I was able to pull that out with minimal force without even using tools. So I would definitely count this tool out. So on the ratcheting crimpers, that only leaves 2 that actually did pass the test. And the best performance would be from this one. This is the HKS ratcheting crimp tool at $45.98, and this one at $69. Did a pretty decent job at that gauge wire, but it was a lot easier to pull it off, and it did not take any strands off with it, whereas this one did a stronger, a better crimp at its maximum setting. Now we're going to step up the pressure, guys. So we're going to go to even a smaller gauge wire now. Like I said, this was the 2004 Dodge, which is somewhere around 18 gauge to 20 gauge. And here looks like it's going to be about 22 to 24 gauge, I would estimate. And this is from, I believe it's like a 2020 Honda. And you can see that's the OBD port, and you see the wiring coming from it. By the way, these are all crimped in there on these terminals. If you pull them out, you'll see they're all factory crimped. That's what I was